Hey guys, Tim Avery here with another rendition of putting it all together. I've got a special treat today. We're actually going to work on a replacing a regular toggle switch and putting it's an occupancy light switch. So we're going to put in this PIR vacancy occupancy wall switch sensor, which pretty much means that it allows you to just walk into the room and the light turns on. It's a great way to save some energy, some lighting, so if people forget to turn off your light in your house, or if you run an Airbnb, it's a great way to minimize people from leaving the light switch on. I have one already in my bathroom. So this is my bathroom that I have for guest room, and so you see the light just turned on because I have this sensor switch in here. So you can adjust the timer on these, and I'll show you that. You can sense the ambient light sensor on that. So if you have this in an area where you already have a lot of ambient light or natural lighting, this will detect it and it'll say pretty much, you don't need light, so I'm not going to turn the light switch on or turn the light on or whatever it is that you have it hooked up to. So we're going to show you how to do that. So if you want to learn how to put in an occupancy light switch, sensor switch, then stay tuned. Okay, so this is the room that we're actually going to put this in on. You see this room gets a lot of ambient light. We're going to put this switch right here. Now this switch that we have actually comes in different forms, and you want to make sure you get the right switch. I made the mistake of not knowing that I needed different types of switch because I'm not an electrician, but I am a DIYer, so just follow instructions. Just make sure that when you do get these switches, that you have the right one. And what I mean by that is that you want to make sure that you get the one that's single pole or a three-way switch. You know, one operates for a three-way switch, one operates for a single pole. Now, what the difference is that if you just have one light switch that operates your lights in the room, you don't have another switch anywhere else to operate that switch. That means you have a single pole switch. Now, if you have a hallway that has a switch on one end of the hallway and a switch on the other end, that means you have a three-way switch, and you need to make sure you get the right indicator on here that says this is for single pole or for three-way. So this one's just for a single pole switch, so I want to make sure, yeah, so it says right there, so this is for single pole. So this is just for if you just have one switch operating the light or whatever you're trying to switch it for. Alright, first thing you want to do, obviously you want to find the right switch to turn off your breaker. So we turned off the switch already, so just turn off the switch, the breaker. First step. You've already identified that this is the light switch for the indoor and this is the light switch for the outdoor patio. So we have two different light switches. So we're going to swap this switch out for the occupancy sensor switch, excuse me. So the first thing we do is remove this plate. Alright, so now we know that this is the switch that operates our light. We can go ahead and take these top screws out here, this top and bottom screw out. Okay. Some of these have these little black back plates on here, so I just stick this in here to kind of free this screw a little bit. Okay, so that's free. So you're gonna pull this whole thing out. You're gonna have some little bit of resistance because these wires in here. So you see that? You got those wires. And so this is actually perfect. Okay, so you got your basic things here. So this is gonna be your ground wire there. And then you're gonna figure out, usually one of these is marked black, one of these are just brass. If you have one that's marked black, that means that's your load wire, and then that's gonna be one of them is gonna be your load wire, one's gonna be your runner. Okay, so you're just gonna take those off, and we'll make sure that we get the right switch, and I'll show you how to figure out which one that is. And I wanted to show you this too, some of them will have this little back, like a slip knot or slip thing on here, so that way it just guide your bolt in there a little bit better, or your screw in there a little better. So you just take that off. It's like a little piece of film. You can reuse it if you want, but I just take it off and just you can handle it. You have to open it up here. It's kind of like a little washer and that thing, whatever. Okay, so what I've seen so far is that you've got two wires here connected here. So this is probably your runner terminal here, which means that one of these is probably connected to this switch here. So this is probably going to be your load. This is probably where you're getting your power from, your actual coming through from your breaker box. So that's probably where this line is, because these two are loaded here. So this is probably sharing, one of these wires right here are probably connected to this switch here that operates the front door. So to verify that, we're going to take this one off and see if one of these wires connected here, just to verify, to make sure that this is actually our hot load right here, that we're actually getting this from our breaker box, okay? Okay, now that we got the screws out, I'm gonna take a look here and see. Pull that out, and let's see. So it looks like, yep, so it looks like, see this wire right here? That's connected to here. So this is, and this switch, this right here is running up to, okay, check that. So this will actually be your load wire right here. This down here will be your hot load, because this is coming in. Yes, that'll happen. So this will be your load wire here, just your hot wire right here, because this is then sharing this hot as a hot too. So this will be your hot load in wire, and then this switch right here runs up to the switch, the light up there. So this is your runner here. This will run up to the light inside the room. So that'll run up to that light up there. Okay, so that's the top one. So that's your runner. That's up there. This is going to be your load wire right here. So this is your hot. So this wire is coming in from the breaker box, and then this is then sharing this same hot wire to this. So it's just bridging this to power this light switch. So that way this light switch runner is going outside to the light outside the front door. So to wire this, we can actually put this switch back where we won't need it, but just to make sure we have plenty of room in here, we'll go ahead and wire this thing up. So let's okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open this box here, see what we got in here. I love these because, and I'll send you a link. I'll put a link in the description below. I got these on Amazon. It was actually a 2-pack. I think we got these for like 2 for like 15 or 20 bucks or something like that, which is amazing. The deal on Amazon, I always get great deals on Amazon. So like I said, I already got one of these in my bathroom. I like the way it works. So we went ahead and got this one. And this also has instructions. And see, this comes with a plate too. So if you just had a single switch, this already comes with a faceplate, you know, so which is great. But if you have a double switch like I have, you know, I just went to Lowe's or your department store, whatever your local hardware store, and they'll have a double switch like I have purchased, and you can just get one that has a switch and a block, you know, connected together. So that way when I'm finished, I just have a faceplate that has one for the switch and one for the block out. Okay, for the actual sensor. Everything you need in this box. Okay, if you're just doing, like I said, a single switch. But you have your wing nuts in there, your wire nuts, excuse me, and then you got your screws in there for the faceplate and for actually the mounting bracket for the thing in it. So I love this. So let's just take this all out. Here's your actual switch and instructions, you know, to kind of tell you exactly what you need to do. And it tells you what all these wires mean. So don't let this discourage you, because you see that these are different color wires, and you've only got, you know, black wires and a copper lead there. So, but the great thing about this is that it tells you exactly on the instructions that I dropped here. It tells you exactly what these wires mean and where you can connect them to. So it just tells you backside here, wire diagram. It just says, okay, so the green is the ground, right? And we know our ground is here on this. See this, the great thing about these switches is that every ground that you have is indicated with a green screw, and it's, so that you know that's your ground. Like I said, the load wire is usually a black nut or a black colored screw. These are brass colored, but we figured out which one is already the load or the hot wire. And so what we connect with the hot wire is the black neutral. So what we're gonna do, okay, our green is the ground, so we're gonna take this off, connect those together, right? Not on this switch, but we load our green. So once I take this off of here, I'm gonna put this copper and wing nut it together. And then I'm gonna take this black hot wire, because that's what this wire diagram says, is that black is hot, right? This black wire, that's red. This black wire, we're gonna connect that with our hot wire, which we know is the bottom one here. So we'll take this wire off of here, and then we're gonna load this on our hot wire, right? We'll actually splice these two together, so that way this gets power, and then this also gets power. Yes, so that's what we'll do to make sure that that gets what it needs to get, okay? And we'll get that together. So, and then this white wire is your neutral wire, which you have a bundle of white wires in here, and we'll just take this wing nut off and wire this white neutral wire to the rest of these neutral wires, okay? And then this red one is gonna be our runner, and we're gonna connect that red one up to the top, okay? So you got your red wire to that, your green wire to the ground, your black wire to the hot, this is where the power comes in, and then this is gonna be your neutral wire, and this will be to the light. So that goes to the light, this gets the power, this goes to neutral, and this is your ground wire, okay? And we're gonna put that all together right now. Okay, so first thing you wanna do is you wanna take your ground wire out and you wanna wing nut that together. Take the grounding wire off of there. Now it'll probably have a wire hook already on it, like they call this a shepherd's hook. See how that's hooked around like that? I'll just go ahead and straighten this up with a pair of pliers. Remember, you want all to make sure your power's off. Like I make sure you do that. That's the first thing you do. Not just turn the switch off, and make sure you turn the breaker off. Make sure no power is going to the stuff at all. So we're gonna need one of these wing nuts. We'll just take one of these out of here. All right, so like I said, we'll do our take that, line it up together, stick the wing nut on top. Make sure that they're straight up and down. You don't want it to be like this. You don't want it to wrap around there. You want it to be lined up the top together, just kind of like that. The wing nut on top. Okay, so just so you know, this wing nut, if you don't know what this does, it just makes a constant connection. So what you're doing is making sure that these both wires are inside that wing nut. You see there's a metal connector in there. It just makes a solid connection. So you're just making sure that they're staying together. Okay? And you want to give it a good turn so it gets nice and tight. And you always want to just kind of check this to make sure that none of these wires that's not going to come out. So just give not a yank tug, but just give a nice little tug to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and tight in there. Okay? So we got a ground wire, which is always important to do first. You want to ground out your wire. Next, just to get this out of the way, we're going to do our neutral wire. So I'll just use this same wing nut. You can just take this off of there. So we're going to take our white wire. This is our neutral wire. And we're just going to, like I said, you want to keep it even together like that. And like I said, I'm using the same wire nut. Put that in there. Make sure it stays flush and just keep turning. You get a nice snug fit on there, and just give that white wire that you just put in there a nice little tug. Okay. All right. You won't need that. So just now these wires, really just push that back in there. You need as much room as possible to put that box in there. So I just push that way back in there. Make sure that that wire didn't come loose at all. All right. Next, I'm going to do my runner wire. So I'm going to take this off of there. Now you could just go ahead and just take all these wires off of there, but just so you know what you're doing, you know, and just keeping track of your wires, so you ain't got a bunch of wires hanging around. You know what you're doing. So now we're gonna take our runner wire. Remember, we established this is our runner wire. This actually goes to the light fixture itself. All right, so I'm gonna undo this runner wire here. Take this off of here. All right, get your plier. This is our runner wire. So We're gonna connect our red wire to that. Just pull the wing nut out of there. All right, so then, like I said, we're gonna run a wire. You can get that copper wire out of the way if you want. Just put your wing nut on there. I guess we're gonna line it up good. It's good, the same height. Like you don't want it to be like that. You want it to be straight up and down. Get it like that. Like this is okay. Like that's okay as long as you get connection in this wire nut, what you'll have. Just put the wire nut on there. Get that little tug to make sure that's staying in there. All right. Now the only thing left we got is our load wire. We'll splice all three of these lines actually together. So that way this has power still, because if you just take this off, this ain't gonna have any power. So, and this is the hot wire coming from the breaker box. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, now we're going to take our pliers, straighten out our lines there. Oh, I see what they did here. So they just actually made this. You see what they did? They just hooked this on here. So this is actually all one line. So what we need to do is we need to now what I can do is wrap this around there. But I like the safety and security of these wing nuts. So I'm gonna cut that right in the middle, line them up together and wing nut it. Okay, so we'll do that. Just give me, I gotta get my clippers, so. Okay, now that I've got that clipped, this all together, these three lines. I've elected to go with a bigger wire nut because I have 3 lines now instead of just 2. So my wire nut's just a little bit bigger, just to accommodate, bigger more wires. So once you got all that in there, just gotta make sure these nice good turns. And like I said, again, you want to just make sure that those wires aren't slipping out. You give it a nice good twist, and you check all your wires to make sure none of them, especially this thinner wire, that it's not going to come out on you. Okay. Next thing we need to do, I want to make sure I got it all wired correctly. So now that you know you've got all your wires covered up with wing nuts and stuff, let's just double check to make sure that our light switches work and we're good to go. So let's do that. So let's turn the breaker back on. All right. So we got our lights. Turn the lights back on. Make sure our connection's good. Let's go check. Okay, so we just turned the breaker back on, and this will actually give you a light indicator that it's on. You got power going to it. And then I want to check to make sure this light switch still works. So I'm going to open up my front door. Okay, good. So our light switch still works. And then so our sensor switch should operate this light here. So because it's a fan and a light and it has its own full switch, I'm going to turn the power on there, and then I'm going to hit this button and see if we get power to our light. Okay, so that's working now. Okay, so the sensor, and we can set, well, I'll show you how to check this setting, but we just want to make sure that our power is working on there. So if I hit this button, the power went off, and I hit it again. Again. Okay. So we know that it's working. We always want to check that before we start stuffing wires back in there to make sure we got it all connected, okay? So let's turn the power breaker back off. Got our lights. So we're gonna turn that breaker back off to make sure that, because as we're stuffing wires back in there, if something's loose or comes undone and we don't want to get shocked. So we're turning our breaker back. Now we have our breaker switch off. We're gonna go ahead and start putting this back together. Okay, so first thing I want to do, I want to try and get as many wires as I can to the back side here. So the great thing about this, like I said, is that you got a switch, you got plenty of room to work with in here. So, but you want to try to get as much of this wire pushed through here to the right side, because you need a lot more room for this. So you want to try to push those wires as good as you can to the right. Now, if you didn't get those wires in there tight in the wing nut, you'll start to see that they'll come loose. You want to check that, okay? You want to make sure that these wires stay in these wing nuts. If you got them tight enough, you shouldn't have to worry about it. But if they do happen to come loose, just make sure you put them back in there, make sure they're lined up together, and just make sure they're nice and tight on these, okay? Just make sure they're nice, little tight, and then, like I said, give it a nice little tug and test to make sure they're not loose, okay? So we're gonna get this in here. All right, so I'm gonna put this switch in there first. That goes in that little hole right there. I love it because you see that it got a little bit of play in there. That's gonna come in handy a little bit later, especially when you put your faceplate over the top of it. You want to make sure if you need to move it to the left a little bit or to the right a little bit to make sure that this is lined up with your faceplate. Because what you want to do next is try to get as many wires as you can push behind this switch, because you got a little bit more room behind this switch than the other one. So once you got that kind of in place, you can kind of manipulate these wires a little bit more. Just kind of get them tucked in there, because you're going to need a little bit more room. Again, this is why it's important to have your power switch back off right now, because you're kind of pushing against these wires, and if something was loose and happened to come undone, then you feel it because you get shocked. All right, so let's get the screws for that. And got my screws. Remember, you want to make sure you orient this the right way. So this top there. And like if you're using these screws and you're just pushing them in there, make sure first of all you got it lined up to the right hole, because there's bigger holes on either side of this. Make sure you got the hole lined up right. Screw is too big or too small, just use your original screws that came out of this. But if you're using an electrical box, like this box here that all this stuff sits in, so this is a box that these switches and wires are in. It's not just in the wall, but it's in a box. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that this is a actual blue box that this whole switch thing is sitting in. And it has the preset screws and holes. And it's actually blue, the whole box, but because this has been painted and stuff like that. So what I'm saying about these screws is you see these holes here, to make sure, these big openings here, you want to make sure that that screw is going into that hole. So if the screw is just going straight through, and you're like, what the heck, that's not a screw. You just make sure that your screw is actually in that hole for that screw. Probably like, what? But just to make sure, just watching these things. I like to check the switches again to make sure that they're working, because while we were pushing those wires and stuff like that in the box, something could have got loose, and before I put everything back on, at this stage, I check the light switches to make sure they're still working, okay? All right, so we're gonna turn a breaker box back on. We're gonna check the light. Okay, so we flipped the breaker box back on. I still got a green light. I'm just gonna check my switch again. All right, on, off, on, off, off, on, okay. Check my light switch out here, make sure this one didn't get loose for whatever reason. All right, it is currently on already, so I know I've got some power, but let's make sure the light switch is good. Okay, so we're good there. So we know that this is set in place. Now, you can leave the switch on now, because you're not gonna really mess with any wire. You're just gonna kind of slide this back and forth, but for safety reasons, I turn it off anyway. Just turn it Okay, now that we've got everything working, got everything that's working. I don't have this all tightened down for a reason, because it has a little bit of play wiggle left or right, and that's why I've turned the breaker box off, because if I'm putting my fingers in here and wiggling this, I want to make sure that I'm not touching anything back there that I don't need to be touching. I'm going to put this over here to make sure that everything lines up correctly on here. And if I need to move things back and forth, I can do that. So I just place this over here. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty good fit. It's not going flush all the way, obviously, because I don't have it screwed all the way down. So I should be good because all my holes are lining up. I can see through here. You probably can't, but I know that the holes, this hole here, you know, all that, this hole here, that hole is lined up to there, this hole is lined up to there, and the top ones are lining up. So I know that all 4 of my holes are lining up, and it's not, you know, this outline of the switch is in the hole there it needs to be in, and the hole obviously in here is good too. So actually the placement of these switches right now are pretty good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and screw these in and be good to go. Nice and snug in there, not wiggling, nice and secure. So let's get our faceplate and put it on. Still got a nice snug fit, I think. Hang on. Okay. See what I mean? Okay, this is a good example. I'm glad this happened. You see how this is kind of off? So you know that you can slide this switch over. This is actually a pretty good idea. I'm glad this happened. Okay, so as you put your faceplate on and as you were tightening down, you obviously had a little bit of a problem, because as I was tightening down, it must have been tightening down to where I was pulling this switch over to the right too far. So I can take this plate off, right, and see, okay, okay, bring that out. So can I bring this switch back in some? Yeah, I can, with this bottom one, and make sure that that's lined up. And so what I'll do is I'll slide this over to the left so it'll fit in a little bit better. Let's do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this actually in some, because I have a little bit of play right here. I see I'm going to slide this switch over some a little bit. So I'm glad that we ran through the issue so you can see if you need to adjust yours. So I'm going to slide that over. See how that kind of slides back and forth? So I'm going to slide that all the way over and tighten it all the way down, holding it in place because it won't move on you because you're turning the screws. So let's check this. All right, let's check this again after we got it maneuvered a little bit. So that fits a lot better now. Let me get a look at that. All right, so we're pretty much done. So we're gonna put these screws in and then we should be done. Okay, so now we got our faceplate on. That looks pretty good. Next, we wanna make sure that we just turn the power back on, or one. All right, let's turn our power back on. Okay, so and then you're going to go through the settings of how to set this up. But you want to refer to your own directions on how to make the settings on your light switch. But I'm going to put this cover back on. Okay, so, if you enjoyed that rendition of putting it all together, I'm Tim Mabry. If you like our YouTube channel, we have lots of DIY stuff on here, but if you like that, like it, subscribe, and just to make things a little bit easier so you don't have to call an electrician that might charge you, I don't know, $125 to do this, and this actual switch, just, I think we got 2 for $25 off of Amazon. And the cost of the faceplate, you know, because we had to get another one because we have a dual switch faceplate.
That costs like $1.50, you know. So, and then just the time that it takes you for yourself to do it, and it's really simple. And sometimes people get weirded out when it comes to electrical stuff. And if you just take the time to learn how to do it, you can do it yourself, and you can just be a DIYer. So, love you guys. Hope you enjoy this. If you do like this video, like I said, hit subscribe, like, and all that stuff. And if you want to know where we got our stuff up, we'll put the links in the description below. But bye for now. We'll see you next time.